Good afternoon. My name is Harry Osterman. I'm the Alderman of the 48th Ward. I want to welcome all of you to Edgewater in the 48th Ward for the groundbreaking of the Red Purple Modernization Program. Work that will have a lasting impact in our city and our community. Work that's been in the works for 15 years. Joined today by Alderman James Kappelman from the 46th Ward, Dan Walsh from Walsh Construction, Dorval Carter, the head of the CTA. We're joined by labor leaders Bob Reiter, the head of the Chicago Federation of Labor, and Deborah Lang, the head of the ATU. Also want to welcome Congressman Mike Quigley, who is on the Appropriations Committee and working hard to make sure that more infrastructure programs like this happen around the country. And we'll be joined shortly by Senator Richard Durbin. I want to welcome all of you to a project that's going to have a lasting impact in our community. And in digging through some of my old notes, I found a program on neighborhood charrettes we did from 2007, over 15 years ago, or close to 15 years ago. This has been a project that has been worked on at many stages for many, many years, and will have lasting impacts far beyond our time here or my time here. We're joined here by Senator Durbin. Senator, I want to recognize the senator briefly before I introduce Mayor Lightfoot. There was a time in Washington when a lot of the money going to transportation was going to new lines that were being built around the country. And Senator Durbin, who does so much for Illinois and our country, said, we need money for the old lines, lines like the Red Line in Chicago. And he worked with his colleagues from around the country to get money to make sure that lines like this that were crumbling had money to be rebuilt. And we would not be here today without his leadership. I want to say thank you, Senator Durbin, for all you do. It's critical for all of us to understand that the Red Line connects the north side to the south side. It is a unifier. There are students from the south side who are in high school who take the Red Line to go to Senn High School up the street from us, or go to Loyola University or Truman College. There's people from our community that go to work every day downtown, or they want to visit communities on the south side, see a Sox game, or in the future go to the Obama Center. It is a great unifier for us. This work being done today is going to help unify us as we work to extend the Red Line south and do other projects that lift up our city. Mayor Lori Lightfoot understands that progress has to spread to every corner of the neighborhood. Not just Edgewater, not just Uptown, but every neighborhood in the city of Chicago. This project and future projects in Capitol put construction to work, put people to work, lift up neighborhoods. That's what she's been about as mayor, and that's what she's going to continue to do. It gives me great privilege to introduce our mayor, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Thank you, Alderman Osterman. And really, the Alderman, I think, really said it best. Transportation is an equalizer. Giving people access to the ability to come from one neighbor to another for work, for play, leisure, is critically important in our city. And I also just want to compliment President Carter. President Carter, not a flashy guy, doesn't seek out the limelight, but he gets it done. And why I particularly like Dorval is, unlike other systems across the country that shut down, that reduced services, that didn't take care of their workers, we didn't do that here in Chicago because of President Carter's leadership. This is the only major transportation system in the country that kept running all through the pandemic. Why? Because we knew workers needed to work. We knew people in neighborhoods had to get to their jobs and other essential pieces of their life. And public transportation is the glue that holds us all together. So President Carter, on behalf of a grateful city and workers all over the city, thank you so much for your leadership in the CTA. I also want to thank our great Senator Durbin. Again, Alderman Osterman said it right. Senator Durbin listens. He comes into communities, he understands problems, and then he does something about it. That is what leadership truly is. And I'm grateful for the partnership of our great senior senator, not only for what he does for the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, but his leadership on the national level. If you watch him, if you see his words and the way he talks about the issues of the day, every single time, I'm proud that he is our senator. So thank you, Senator Durbin. And I also want to give a shout out to my friend Mike Quigley. Again, a guy who makes sure that he listens, that he has a heart for what's going on in community, and then takes it to Washington and gets it done. He is doing so many great things for the city of Chicago, so many things to keep us safe nationally because of the various roles that he holds in Congress. So Mike, thank you also very much. And Alderman Kappelman is also here, our friend and our conscience in the City Council. Jim, thank you as well for everything that you're doing and making sure that your community's needs are met and keeping us accountable to your communities. I also want to give a shout out to Walsh Group President Dan Walsh Jr. The Walsh people are here, which we appreciate. Federal Transportation Administration Regional Administrator Kelly Brookins. But I also want to say to the men and women of organized labor, the trades, the engineers, this is also a day of celebration for you. This city is poised to recover from this pandemic in a powerful, powerful way. But through it all, you've been hard at work. You've not stopped. You've made sacrifices. You put your lives literally at risk because that's what organized labor does. In a town that has a proud, long history with organized labor, we're grateful for everything that you've done. Thank you, Bob, for your leadership. Thank you, Deborah. But this is a day to celebrate the men and women of this city who work their tails off to keep us safe and to make sure that our economy keeps humming. So thank you all. In a world-class city, we have to have a world-class transportation system, one that connects neighborhoods and removes barriers to access by getting residents and visitors where they need to go on time in a way that is simple and affordable. And for decades, the CTA has provided that world-class system for this world-class city that has worked day in and day out to ensure the system not only functions properly, but goes above and beyond as it connects each of our 77 neighborhoods through buses and trains. Chicago has never been a city that settles for good enough, and we will not now, especially during the pandemic that is demanding that we harness the power of transformative infrastructure projects to bring about an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable recovery. Our residents deserve and our businesses depend upon affordable, safe, and reliable TTA. That's why over the years, the CTA has launched several initiatives that seek to greatly enhance and improve our renowned transit system, giving the highest quality experience for riders. And one of these initiatives is what we're here to talk about today, the Red Purple Line Modernization, or RPM project. This multi-phase project is transformational in that it will allow the CTA to provide more convenient and reliable service to riders by rebuilding the tracks and stations between Belmont and Linden. In 2019, the CTA began phase 1, and we were all together for that groundbreaking. The reconstruction of adjacent track structure to ensure a smoother ride, and a new modern rail bypass north of Belmont Station where red, brown, and purple line trains connect, which will improve service and add capacity, and above all, relieve chronic overcrowding and delays. And a new rail system signal from Howard to Belmont that will improve service reliability. Today we're breaking ground on the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr Modernization Project, a key component of RPM Phase 1, which will rebuild the 100-year-old Lawrence, Argyle, Berwyn, and Bryn Mawr red line stations and track structures on our transit line, busiest line. These new stations, which will open by the end of 2024, will be the best of the best, featuring modern, larger, and fully accessible stations. And let's give a shout out for making sure that these stations are accessible to everyone. The first phase leverages an impressive $2.1 billion alone And again, thanks to our federal partners who made sure that the resources were there to make this happen. And it's also the result of hundreds of community meetings, as Alderman Osterman said, sidewalk pop-ups, posters, banners, and other outreach efforts stretching back years. Features a workforce development program led by the CTA in partnership with Hire 360 and the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, which will create a pipeline for talent for the transit industry by connecting disadvantaged workers with trade unions and real job opportunities. So thank you to the CFL for your leadership and your partnership on this work. Furthermore, because the RPM project is driven by our city's North Stars of equity and inclusion, it has already begun to create economic growth for our communities that need it most. Each year it creates hundreds of good-paying construction jobs, as well as provide new opportunities for job seekers, especially those from low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods via training and apprenticeships. I could go on, but the bottom line here is this is a classic example of when we invest, when we come together, we can get things done for the benefit of many, and that's exactly what this project does. So I want to thank all of our partners at the federal level, and the city level, at the state level, but also our partners in organized labor, because the work that's been done to date and will continue to be done is going to make a difference for generations to come. So this is a proud and exciting day for all of us, and I am grateful for the partnership of so many for so many years that has brought this day, made this day possible. And with that, I'd like to introduce our senior senator, Senator Dick Durbin.
Thank you, Mayor. It's an honor to be here. I have to tell you, everybody already knows that, unlike Dorval Carter, I'm a flashy guy. And I'm hoping one day to work up the courage to wear shoes just like Congressman Quigley, but not today.
It's class.
Class, definitely. What an honor it is to be here. Let me tell you a story. Back when I was elected to Congress, there was a debate underway, and the debate was pretty basic. Of all the federal money you're going to send out from Washington back to the states across the nation, how much of it is going to go to mass transit? Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, it was a battle. And one of our warriors in that battle was a fellow named Dan Rostenkowski. You probably remember the name. Rostenkowski said 40%, and that's what it was. 40% of the money for transportation went back to the states, 40% went to transit. And then there's another problem that the mayor has alluded to. We ran into difficulty. Well, once we get the 40%, what can we spend it on? Well, they said, you can spend it on any new system you want to build across America. But you can't spend it on the existing systems. What? You know, we have transit systems that have been around for decades. They serve the public. They need to be upgraded and modernized. And we can't spend any of this federal money on that. But if somebody dreams up a new system or an extension of existing system, that's wrong. So in 2012, we passed an obscure law called the Core Capacity Bill that said you can spend it on existing systems. I wasn't alone in that effort. Mike Quigley and all the other members of the delegation were solidly behind it, and so was the state of New York and Boston and other communities who were in similar circumstances with Chicago. They had great systems, but they needed to upgrade them, make them safer, access for the disabled people, and so forth. And we got it done. And do you know what the first project in the United States of America was under the core capacity system? This one, right here, RPM. I will tell you, we got $956 million. I wanted $1 billion, but I only got $956 million for this, and we're still fighting for more. And that's what's behind this. You say, Durbin, you fly off to Washington. What do you do? Well, this is an example of a good day in Washington for the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. Dan Walsh, I'm glad you're involved in this. The Walsh family's been terrific. So many projects we've worked on together. Special thanks to the women and men in the hard hats and all those of you who've been working on this project. You're the best, and you build the best, and we're damn proud to be part of it. Bob Ryder, thanks for organizing these folks through CFL. We've got more to do. The next phase, which we're announcing today, as I understand, let me see if I remember this correctly, 4 stations, 6 miles. We think some 1,400 employees are going to be engaged in this, good paying jobs as they should be, and then we have more to follow on that. There's work to be done out there, and the United States is picking itself up off the mat after this COVID-19 and getting back to business. You worked all the way through it. As the mayor reminded us, it was October of 2019 when we first gathered. It was a cold day, rainy too. But you worked right through that COVID-19 pandemic and did reach the point that we are today. There's more to follow. When you invest in America and invest in the American people, you never lose. The United States of America is in a position to win, and the city of Chicago is part of that winning team. I'm glad to be part of it too. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Quigley.
Thank you, Senator. I started wearing these shoes on January 7th. You want to be able to move quickly these days, folks. A couple things first. Illinois sometimes, I think, fails to appreciate just how important it is to have a senior senator with the extraordinary influence, respect, and power in Washington, D.C., as Illinois does with Senator Durbin. Thank you, Senator. And I'll say this, I've been here 13 years now. Senator Durbin's been in Congress a lot longer than me. I'll tell you, Mayor Lightfoot is a pleasure to work with. It is complicated enough to do this, all that's involved, but she's really done a great job, not just reaching out, but effectively communicating with the Illinois delegation. And it is a little like herding cats, but in this case, all the cats think they're the smartest cat. She moves past that. You know, I heard something interesting when we talked about infrastructure the other day. They said, well, you know, the infrastructure bill that you're pushing is not traditional infrastructure. Well, first of all, yes, it is. We're standing in front of traditional infrastructure. It's been around here a long time. And that has to be a big core of this, right? Our planes, our trains, our roads and bridges. And that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do it on an unprecedented scale because we have to. Because our closest competitors in the world are outspending us on infrastructure. 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, India, Europe, and China. It makes us less economically competitive to come through this. And as the mayor said to me when I met her, she wants to come out of COVID roaring, and a big part of that has to be rebuilding our infrastructure. But the other part of what I heard was this isn't, you know, our parents' infrastructure. FDR didn't rebuild the old infrastructure. He had a vision to rebuild for the future, not the past, right? He electrified rural America. Eisenhower didn't rebuild just the old infrastructure. He envisioned an interstate highway system that has changed this country, right? Made it the economic power that it is. So the same thing, I believe, is true with the Democrats and President Biden. It is not just building the traditional infrastructure. And for those who say, oh, that's all we should focus on, they're missing the point. One of the things the pandemic taught us was the economic disparities that exist in this country. Right? You saw that with the digital divide. You saw the problems with the grid system, not just in Texas, but elsewhere. That's just the beginnings of the type of infrastructure rebuild. Moving forward, looking forward, and transformative as well. So let's not have any small plans here, folks. Let's not just look at the past. Let's build from what's going on behind us right now and move together on all the things that unite us and bring this country together. And if we can't do this on a bipartisan basis, we got a problem. And if we can't, we're going to move forward together. We're going to move forward alone if we have to, just because the role and the functions that we do are so important. So next, I'd like to bring on the president of the CTA, who has a Herculean task, again, kept the trains and buses going in difficult times. He's got his work cut out for us, but we're behind him, President Carter.
Thank you, everyone. And you know, as I listen to the speakers come up before me, I am truly reminded of a phrase that I'm very familiar with, which is, it takes a village. And in my industry, in my world, that village consists of all the elected officials who are here today, and even a few who aren't, but who I know still support us. And so, Senator Durbin, your story was music to my ears. I remember it very well. I think I've lived every one of those days along with you as we tried to get this program put into place that allowed us to build this project. I also remember the fact that there was a junior senator from Illinois who's very much a part of this. He eventually went on to do a few other things, I believe. I don't know whatever happened to him. Someone named, Barack Obama or something, but he went off to do something else. In any event, their leadership was one of the reasons why this project is here today, along with the leadership of the House delegation that included many members of Congress, including Congressman Quigley, as well as Congressman Schakowsky, who wasn't able to join us today, but is an integral part of the success of this project and our ability to fund it going forward. And of course, none of this would have happened without the ability to put in place a TIF that allowed us to basically fund the non-federal portion of this. And to that, I thank the aldermen who are here today, both Alderman Kappelman, Alderman Osterman, Alderman Tunney, who isn't with us today, but who certainly is a part of this footprint of this project, all of whom, if we had not all worked together, would not be here today to enjoy this moment. And so it truly was a village of people dedicated to supporting a project like this, and then giving me the responsibility of making it happen, which I've tried to pursue to the best of my ability, but also with the understanding of the vision that you heard the mayor lay out about what these projects are supposed to be about, because they're more than just moving people from point A to point B. They're about our communities. They are intended to impact our communities in a positive way. And we've done that a number of different ways with the work that we've done here today. One of the biggest things that we've done, which the mayor actually mentioned earlier, was setting a goal that all of the stations in CTA system will be 100% accessible. This is a big step towards achieving that goal. And as the mayor pointed out, with the completion of this work, we will have 4 more stations that are accessible that were not accessible before. Currently, CTA has 70% of its system accessible, 70% of our rail system. I've established a goal that we're going to get to 100%, and I'm committed to working with my local partners as well as my federal partners to get the funding to allow me to do that. And Senator Duckworth, thank you. Senator Duckworth, who isn't able to join us today and who is obviously a very strong advocate and proponent of what I'm trying to do, is working very hard to put in place the programs that ultimately will provide the level of funding support to allow me to reach that goal sooner rather than later, which is important to all of us. I think the other thing that we really focused on here was our workforce program. And as the mayor pointed out, we have taken the opportunity of using this project to create a workforce program that is helping to train and employ people who face significant obstacles to training and employment in zip codes where the median income is below $40,000 a year. In addition to that, part of the labor hours on this project are dedicated to apprenticeships, so hardworking individuals can gain the skills that they need to move on to other construction projects, preparing them for long-term careers. And I have some examples of that effort here with us today. One of whom is Erica Ramos. Erica? Erica is a great example of what we've done. Erica used to ride the Red Line to work every day and admire the opportunity that transit provided to her. And now she's in a position today to be a part of that future, as Erica is now a second-year carpenter apprentice from the Little Village area who is working on a component of the RPM, which is constructing the red-purple bypass that's north of Belmont. Erica decided to change careers a few years ago and became a certified employee under the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act, or what we refer to as WIOA, making her eligible to perform work on this project. She's done a great job, and she's learning the skills that will carry her forward to future projects and begin the process of developing a career for herself and her family. Also joining us today is Will Moody. Will? Will is a longtime veteran of CTA projects, and over the course of his 29 years, he has worked on a number of projects, including RPM, Wilson, Garfield Green, and Jefferson Park. I'm working hard to convince Will to continue working on some projects in the future, but we'll see how that goes. Will became interested about drafting and sheet metal work in high school, and during college began working construction. He found that he loved it so much that he continued working in the trades, and he has made a living and a career out of his work. It's workers like Erica and Will who are literally building the CTA of the future and building long-term sustainable careers as a part of that. We're also about creating opportunities for small businesses to bid on CTA contract work, which helps small businesses create jobs and flourish. And I'm proud to report, with really just a third of the project completed, that we have already given more than $180 million to disadvantaged business enterprise, with more work and dollars to come in the future. So today marks a historic day for our city and for our people. And more importantly, it continues the vision that the mayor has so diligently established for all of us about inclusivity and opportunity for all. And so I'm proud to be a part of this project. I'm proud to continue to move this project forward. And I'm proud of this city for everything that it is standing for and everything that it is doing to make this a better place for all the residents who live here. And with that, I will now turn it over to the contractor who is actually building this project for me, Dan Walsh. Dan?
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Dan Walsh Jr. I'm a co-president of Walsh Construction, representing the contractor, which is Walsh Construction, and our partner, Fluor Construction. And we're here to just do what we're told to do, I guess is a good way to say it. We're generally pretty good at that, but first and foremost, thank all our friends in government for providing the funding that allows things like this to be built. So thank you to all of you. Walsh has a long history with the CTA. Successful history, and hopefully this is another successful project on our resume. Walsh has taken this job very seriously. We went out and found Fluor, who is an international builder of transit systems like this, and maybe one of the better ones in the entire world. So we partnered with them, came in with a successful design and bid. And when this is all said and done, this will probably look like nothing you've ever seen before on the existing CTA system. So prepare yourselves for that. It's a very different product than you're used to seeing. So, along the trail, we just hope to be good partners, not only with our friends in government and with the CTA, but also with the neighbors in the neighborhoods that we're working. Admittedly, I live not too far from here, a couple miles southwest. My sister Amy actually lives just northwest up at Misericordia Home. Some of you know that. So we again just hope to be very good neighbors, and on behalf of all of the men and women who are working to design and build this, thank you for everything you said about them. COVID hasn't been easy, but I will promise you they were all here every day over the last 14, 16 months doing what they need to do. And in a strange way, it did create some opportunities on this project to pick up some schedules. So again, very excited about the project, very excited about our partnership with the CTA. The collaboration going on between the two teams is so far going very well. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Alderman James Kappelman, the 46th Ward, and just so delighted to be here. I'm one of those people who is not from Chicago. I'm from Houston, Texas. I came here as a Franciscan friar, and when I left the order, let's just say that my beliefs about women's rights had some conflicts. But when I left the order, I was given $200, and they wished me well. So I had to couch surf for 6 months, and I had to quickly find a job. I found a job as a teacher in a Catholic school. I'm here to tell you, Catholic school teachers do not get paid well. It was either bicycle over there, because it was in Albany Park, and I lived about 10 miles away, or take the CTA. And that's really what brought me here to Chicago is the CTA. I knew that I could find a job with $200 to my name. I knew I could not afford a car. And you know what? I didn't want a car anyway. And I could do it and live in Chicago. And it is so great to be here in such an incredible city, one of the most diverse cities in this country. I, as alderman, pushed really hard to get the Wilson L redone. And that was a $203 million project. I think 9 years in the making. And I'm here to say that it completely transformed that community. It was incredible. The thing that excited me the most, and I still remember it, getting off at the Wilson L, and a person in front of me was in a wheelchair and was able to get off and able to use the Wilson L stop. That was so transformative for that man. There are so many people who rely on wheelchairs to get around, and with medical science, we're going to find more and more people across this country who are going to be living independently who rely on wheelchairs. And so that is one of the great equalizers, as Mayor Lightfoot has said, not only for our black and brown communities, but for those people with differing abilities. They deserve the right to live full and productive lives and to be able to get around anywhere that they need to go to. And the CTA is helping them do that. So I ask for your patience. It's going to require a lot of patience, but I'm here to say, because I know it's true from the Wilson L, it's all worth it. Thank you so much.
And we are happy to take any questions you have.
We're gonna do the shovels first,
Oh.
and then come back.
Fine. All right, now we're happy to take your questions. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to jump off topic right away, if we could, with the developments out of Springfield yesterday with the elected school board. It seems like your concerns about the school board were soundly rejected by lawmakers. House is expected to pass. What went wrong with your messaging, and what are your concerns about what this school board might mean in Chicago?
Well, obviously, I'm aware of what happened in the Senate yesterday, but it's one step on, I think, a longer journey. So there's more work that we will do. We will continue our engagement, both directly, but also with a range of different community partners that have weighed in. When we're talking about the most consequential change in governance for the Chicago public schools, it can't be about the politics. It's got to be about the people. And the people who matter most are our children. So we're going to keep making sure that that message gets through and resonates, and I'm confident that we'll get to a better place.
But do you feel like your concerns were just completely ignored?
Well, there were obviously a lot of different agendas that were work that I think led to the bill that passed, but as I said, that's one step on a longer journey.
If I can ask you about the, there's a story in the Trib this morning, emails they obtained that suggested that during the rioting a year ago after George Floyd, that the downtown was protected at the expense of the neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, we've been answering that question since a year ago. Let me also just say again, the media is obsessed with these emails, but I think the thing that we ought to concern ourselves with is that an enemy force hacked and stole emails. And I'm disturbed by the fact that the reporting doesn't feature that part of it. We should not be comforted by the fact that somebody broke into an email system, stole a bunch of emails that they were unauthorized to obtain, and then tried to hold lots of folks hostage and for ransom to try to get money out of their felony conduct. So I hope that the reporting actually reflects that reality. There was a narrative, certainly, that we protected the downtown at the expense of the neighborhood. I said it then, I'll say it again, that's absolutely 1,000% false.
Hi, Mayor. Chicago police officer.
Can you
Evan,
identify yourself, sir?
Yeah, sorry. Joe Ward with Block Club Chicago.
Okay.
Officer Evan Solano is being investigated by COPA in the fatal shooting of Anthony Alvarez in March. New video shows him getting into a conflict in the middle of the street where he pulled his gun in a road rage incident that was 2 weeks ago. What's your reaction to that video, and do you think that impacts your efforts to reform the police department?
No, I mean, there's a police department of almost 13,000 officers, and they're going to be, every single day, their officers are out there doing their job the right way and doing really heroic work to protect our residents all over the city. I don't know all the details about that incident, and nor does anybody else. That's why we have an independent investigation. We need to let that play itself out.
Hi, Alex Nitkin with the Daily Line. I actually have a question for Dorval Carter, if that's okay. You mentioned the transit TIF, a bill passed in Springfield a couple days ago that, as I understand it, sort of expands funding for the transit TIF. Can you talk about what that means for the Red Line expansion, talk about sort of what's next for the Red Line extension, and if the senator and congressman could maybe chime in on the prospects of securing enough federal funding to make the Red Line extension happen according to its current schedule?
Sure. The legislation that passed down in Springfield was really a technical amendment to the transit TIF legislation that was passed that formed the basis for constructing the RPM project. We need to make some changes to allow it to be a little bit easier to put the TIF in place for the Red Line extension project and to extend it to cover the rail yard that's a part of the project that went beyond 130th Street. So it wasn't an expansion of funding in any way. It was really just making some procedural adjustments to the process by which you put a TIF into place. I've been pretty clear from the first day that I became president of CTA that the Red Line extension was a priority project for me, one that I was committed to and one that I was committed to get the funding for. I've been working very closely with my federal partners here, along with state and local leaders, to pursue that. The legislation that you just mentioned was just one aspect of that effort. I am very optimistic about our ability to get the funding that we need to make that project become a reality, and we are already committed to spending the money that we need to move it through the process so that it can be eligible for the funding grant that will allow us to construct this project in the near future.
Job of the delegation is to bring federal dollars home. This is an example. There'll be more in the future. Our chance of success depends on what the total amount is spent on infrastructure. That debate is underway. You hear about it every single day. The other party has a different view than we do. I support President Joe Biden. Joe Biden wants to invest in America with good-paying jobs and build an infrastructure to rebuild our economy. Many of my other colleagues want to spend much less. They think America ought to be satisfied with a second-place finish. That isn't the way I feel, and I don't think the president feels that way either.
Look, I'm a chairman on the Propes. We're called Cardinals for some bizarre reason. I think coming out of the House, the picture looks fantastic because, we have a clear majority, narrow, but there's infrastructure, there's earmarks, which has a new name, but it's still the same thing. There's surface transportation earmarks, and then there's normal appropriations. Don't sleep on any of those things because they're all targeted to feed back into Chicago, as the critical work that Senator Durbin's done, drawing resources back, will attest to. So, it is just a question of, I know the president wants to do this on a bipartisan basis. I think that's great. What troubles me is there are those on the other side of the aisle that criticize all this, but they're at events just like this for some unknown reason, talking about what a great thing it is. in the final analysis, if you don't support this stuff, I don't know why we have a hell of a lot of projects in those districts. You want to renounce them, you don't want to do them, fine. But I think the prospects are great. If we have to go this alone, it's just too important not to.
And if I can, for the mayor, if you could just address Alderman King's comments from yesterday saying that your administration might have overstepped its legal authority by revoking a redevelopment.
Let me first pick up on the last point. I think the other point that's important is we have a transportation secretary who's a former mayor. And Pete Buttigieg is one of the smartest people I know. I know he cares deeply about Chicago. We've talked about the needs that are here. And so I feel very, very confident that the circumstances are now right to get the funding that's going to be necessary to make the Red Line extension south past 95th Street actually a reality. Alderman King is an interesting person. Here's what I know. Mercy Hospital is in dire circumstances. And one thing that we know coming out of the pandemic that is crucial, that our safety net hospitals are supported, that they remain open, that they provide services to people in communities that are most in need. Letting Mercy Hospital close, which is what the alderman wanted to do, to me, which is a fundamental mistake. And we disagree on that. Talked to a lot of people about this issue. And what I routinely heard from folks that I think are very knowledgeable, that if you let a hospital close, it doesn't reopen. All we have to do is look at what happened with Metro South. Several years in, lots of energy around getting that hospital reopened. Nothing's happened yet. I have a responsibility as mayor to do the thing that I believe is in the best interest of the people of this city and keeping Mercy Hospital open. And particularly with the extra benefits that we got out of the purchaser Insight. A commitment to put $50 million into the infrastructure of that hospital, putting community members on the board, and a level of transparency that we don't typically see from hospitals with quarterly reporting that's going to be available to the public and more. I think that we did the right thing under difficult circumstances, but keeping that hospital open was a key priority for me. Make no apologies about it.
Hi, Mayor. Mariah Wolfel from WBEZ. On the school closings bill, what do you think of the moratorium included in the school closing in the bill, moratorium on school closings? And also, do you think that the elected school board bill being in place will have an impact on the district's ability to recruit a new CEO?
I don't think it will impact because it's not real yet. We'll see what the actual final bill looks like. It could have an impact. It could have a negative impact if a CEO doesn't believe that he or she is actually going to have the ability to make a meaningful difference in the quality of education and the lives of our children. We've made that argument over and over again. So I think that's something that clearly fell on way too many deaf ears, but we're not going to stop speaking the truth about what we need to focus on. Regarding the school moratorium, what we said is it's a mistake that we would foreclose parents' ability to come together with a plan and offer up consolidation or some other reshaping of schools. For example, there's a group of parents in North Lawndale that have been trying for years to consolidate 3 schools, get one school that is a STEM program. The language that is in that bill right now would cut that off at the pass and not allow it to happen. That's a mistake. And we made that argument, but as I said, fell on deaf ears in the Senate. But there's a lot more work that's going to be done before this any kind of bill becomes law. And so we're going to keep our fight where it should be, which is making sure that our children are heard, that their educational futures are secured, and that parents have a seat at the table. And why that is so hard for people to understand, why that a sense of urgency around those core values is something that some folks in Springfield don't get, I don't know. But there has to be accountability for ignoring the people. And it's interesting that this is supposed to be about democracy, but what happened in Springfield had nothing to do with democracy. But democracy, mark my word, will prevail.
Hi, Mayor. Heather
Heather.
Sharon, WTTW. One on topic and one off topic.
Sure.
The closure of these CTA stations will no doubt hurt nearby businesses that rely on foot traffic. What is the city doing to ensure that they make it through the next several years, even after coming out of the pandemic?
Well, obviously, what we need to do is make sure that we're in communication with them and coordinating, and I think both the local aldermen and the CTA and the design build team have to be in communication with the local businesses so we can help support them, make sure that people know that they're open, get the signage out there, but I think there's a lot that we can do. I don't know, President Carter, if you want to add to that.
I think, as the mayor said, a big part of it is working closely with the business owners in the community to make sure that we get the message out that those businesses are still open. CTA has actually set up a marketing campaign that is focused on the community businesses and making sure that the information about what they're doing and making sure the communities are able to support those businesses in spite of the construction work is continuing. We meet regularly with the business community to discuss more ways that we can promote and support them during this time. So it has been an ongoing partnership with them that will continue throughout this project.
Yes, ma'am.
In Springfield, you backed a change that would have passed redistricting maps for the city council with 26 votes as opposed to 41 votes.
That's not accurate. Remember, I won citywide. What happens with the maps, obviously something that I care about, but what happened in Springfield over the last couple of days was a city council-driven process. I was not involved in that.
Mayor, thank you. Can we get a clarification on your compromise for DuSable? Can you clarify who's paying for all of that you have provided to us? Do you need city council approval? And Alderman Moore says it will not change his mind about renaming Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah, look, we have been working with Alderman Moore and will continue to, if he's open to the conversation, for quite some time around this issue. And yes, ultimately, parts of it will need city council approval, but not all of it. And just to level set, what we're talking about is DuSable Park that's out in the harbor on the east side, and then through the Riverwalk. And what we intend to do with the plan that we put forward is a couple of things. One is to have statues and artwork designed by local artists to really commemorate DuSable. I think what we all can agree on, it's way past time for us to truly, permanently recognize the person who's responsible for the founding of the city, and that's obviously DuSable and his wife, Kitty Hawa. So having something permanent is really, to me, important. But the difference between what we're proposing and just renaming a street is we intend to activate those areas of the river walk with year-round programming to educate both tourists but also our residents about who DuSable was, what his and his wife, what their role is in the history of the city of Chicago. As somebody who is a passionate student of history, one of the things that most concern me is there's so many important chapters in the history of the city of Chicago that young and old alike don't know anything about. So this gives us, I think, a real opportunity to have not only a lasting, permanent set of memorials, because it's 3 statues at Michigan, where the original trading post is, and then 2 other places going to the confluence where the rivers meet, but also programming to educate and activate and bring people to the Riverwalk around the concept of getting to know who DuSable and Kitty Hawa was. So that's the difference. Part of the money will come from the Park District, part of the money will come from city corporate dollars.
And could you also just, on this last one, I just want to make sure I understood. When you said what happened in Springfield was not democracy, are you referring to the elected school board? Are you referring to, I just want to make sure I understand.
I mean, given the conversations I've had over the last couple of days, you probably might be able to apply it. But what I'm saying is this: the people who are going to be most impacted by the change in governance are our students and our parents. And what I've heard since over the last week and since the actions taken by the Senate yesterday is that parents and students don't feel like they were heard. They don't feel like they were listened to. And that is never a good thing. We've come through some very challenging times over the course of this last year as our school system was compelled to close, as school systems were all around the state and really the country, if we're honest. And what grew out of that is parents feeling like they didn't have a seat at the table. We can't talk about a historic change in governance that doesn't give parents an opportunity to sit at the table. For example, there are no controls around how much money gets spent in these school board races. We know from the example of California, Los Angeles, one race was $1 million race. We don't need that here in Chicago. What is the route for actual parents who have skin in the game, of course, because their students are part of the system, but who are members of the LSCs? We proposed a route to make sure that people who were part of LSCs actually had the qualifications to sit on the school board. All of that rejected. So we have to get back to the table in a concerted effort to listen to each other. We're not always going to agree on every point, but it's critically important that there is a negotiated resolution that puts our children and our parents first. And I do not believe what came out of the Senate the other day does any of those things. We can get there, and I'm going to keep fighting, as will others, to get a negotiated resolution that reflects the realities and the necessities of CPS. But we've got a lot of work to do.